Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this video might be a bit of a trigger for some women, and I'm very sorry about that, but it's a subject that has actually been requested the most, and that is miscarriages. So miscarriages happen to 1 in 4 women, and the chances that you know somebody that's had one is extremely high, which is very sad, but they happen for so many different reasons. Miscarriages happen because your exposure to radiation, they happen because of an infection, they happen because of a medication, they happen because of your hormones being imbalanced, they happen just because of your age. If you're over 35, your chances of a miscarriage is 25%. They happen because of diabetes, they happen because of autoimmune diseases, they happen because of improper implantation. Like, they happen all the time. And sometimes they're not even known about, and sometimes they're not even explained. So, on May 15th of 2020, Aaron and I found out that we are pregnant. I was so over the moon excited. I couldn't even imagine, like, what my life was going to be like being pregnant, especially all through summer. Like, oh, but I was willing and so happy to do anything that it took to keep that pregnancy. That was cycle number 9. That was also our first cycle with progesterone that I had to beg my doctor for. So I was like, oh my god, okay, yeah, this is actually happening. This is amazing. We're going to be parents. Like, holy, how are we going to tell our parents? When are we going to tell our parents? When are we going to have our first scan? What is our baby going to look like? Who are they going to look like? How are they going to act when they're older? What's our life going to be like in general? I couldn't kind of piece it all together, but I was so happy and so ready for that journey. Unfortunately, it ended 3 days later. So we lost our baby at 4 weeks, 4 days. And it was very devastating, but I kind of knew something was happening. So I had taken my first pregnancy test at 13 days past ovulation, and I will talk about all of that in other videos about how I knew that, etc. But 13 days past ovulation, I got my big fat positive, and I was so excited. I didn't want to tell Aaron right away, but unfortunately he was home when I tested, so he knew. I didn't get to surprise him. But then I kept testing, and my lines didn't get darker, which is very weird. They're supposed to get darker, not lighter. So I had a feeling that something was wrong and that it wasn't going to stick. But everybody kept saying, oh, don't worry, it's probably just the concentration of your urine, it's probably just the time of day, let your HCG build, etc., etc. Everybody just kept trying to reassure me, but I knew something was wrong. But whatever, we'll play it out, see how it goes. On Monday, May 18th, my biggest fear happened. I started bleeding. I did an online consult with a doctor, and she said it could be so many different things. Try not to stress. It could be okay still. Just keep an eye on the bleeding. But then the cramps started, and then I knew right then and there our baby was no longer with us and that my body was rejecting it. So it's hard to explain, but you just know right away that something's wrong, even before talking to anybody, even before the bleeding started. Like I said, I knew something was wrong. So Aaron was at work because it was a Monday, and I called him home. He came home from work a little early, and I went up to the hospital. Unfortunately, because we're in the middle of a global pandemic, he couldn't come in with me. So I had to go through it alone, which was very scary and very depressing. But the doctors at the hospital that I went to were phenomenal. They were reassuring. They kept telling me that it's not my fault. They kept saying that we're not sure what's going on. We're not sure if it's still there or why you're bleeding, but let's just check. They ran blood work to check my HCG level, and it had already dropped down to 3. So that is too low for sustaining a pregnancy. So that's just how fast everything happened. And right then and there, like, my heart dropped right into my stomach, and I just couldn't even believe it. Didn't seem real. I had to have a follow-up ultrasound just to make sure there was nothing left in my uterus, make sure there was no leftover tissue, make sure it wasn't ectopic, anything like that, just to make sure that I'm healthy to try again. And God willing, I was healthy enough to try again. We have had a failed cycle in between. We're now on cycle number 11. and we are on our 5th round of letrozole or Femara, whatever you would like to call it, and it's just to help with ovulation. But I started Synthroid. So Synthroid is the newest thing that's part of my journey now. And Synthroid is actually for my thyroid. Finally, I had a doctor listen to me. And I'm very ecstatic to say that because I was my own advocate again, that I had a doctor listen to me, and believe me, I've done so much research, and every time I've done research, it says that your thyroid should be under 2.5. And mine was in the 3s. Mine was closer to 4. So that's not a proper number, and that's when your immune system tends to attack things. So if I would have been my own advocate back in May, back in April, back in March when it was detected that I had low functioning thyroid, maybe I wouldn't have lost my baby. Maybe I still would have been pregnant. So that was kind of irritating, kind of frustrating, kind of depressing, that if I would have been my own advocate, I could still be pregnant. We were going to tell our parents on Father's Day that we were pregnant because I would have been 8 weeks and 6 days, and we would have already had our first scan. We would have been able to tell them. I had made onesies, like I had done everything, and I was so happy to finally tell my parents and his parents that we were pregnant. But yeah, God had different plans. And I find myself crying a lot because it's a very sore subject. But it's okay to cry. It's okay to mourn a loss. A loss is a loss. It doesn't matter what state in your pregnancy you are. It doesn't matter if you were only 3 days pregnant. It doesn't matter if you were 38 weeks pregnant. A loss is a loss. I am forever grateful that my body kind of took care of it, and I didn't have to go through a D&C. I didn't have to go through all of that I know somebody else had to, because that's even harder. It's more emotionally tolling on you. But still, a loss is a loss, and it's okay to mourn it. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to look up at the clouds and you see what looks like the shape of a baby and instantly start crying. It's okay that the sun is shining and you start crying. It's okay to feel. But just know that you are not alone. Many, many women for many of years have had miscarriages, and most of the time they're not detected. You can have a miscarriage before you've actually even missed your period, and that's called an early loss. So it can implant and instantly reject. That is possible. And so if you've been trying to conceive and you had what seemed like a really heavy period, clotting, very bad cramps, I'm not trying to depress you, but chances are that was an early loss. Just you didn't know because you didn't test. Most women don't test until after their missed period, which is actually way better emotionally. You're not sitting there trying to stare at that line, trying to make it appear, trying to like flip it inside out just to see if there's a line, taking your tests apart to see if there's a line. It's always better to test after your missed period. But remember, your period can be late because of a number of things, not always pregnancy. But we will get through this together. I promise you. I'm always here for you. I hear you. I am you. And we will overcome miscarriages. We will overcome infertility, and we will get through this together. So if you need help finding your voice, feel free to message me. Feel free to question what I know. Feel free to question my journey and what I've been through. Feel free to share your own story. If you can't share it, but you want it shared, I can post it for you anonymously. If you just need a little bit of help for your voice. But remember, be your own advocate and stand up for yourself and share your story, because it makes things a lot less lonely. I am tougher. I am stronger. I'm a better woman, and I'm a better partner for going through everything that I've gone through. My husband is the greatest man. He is such a strong man. When I went through everything, he was there for me the entire time. He just kept reassuring me that it's not my fault. And remember, if you have a miscarriage, it's not your fault. There was something wrong. And it happened. So just know, it's never your fault that you had a miscarriage. Your body just knew that there was something wrong, and God has other plans for you. something bigger, something greater. But just know you're never alone. Speak up. Feel free to message me. Feel free to sit in your car and cry. Feel free to sit in your room and cry. Feel free to look up at the sky and cry. Feel free to grieve the loss, to mourn the loss, and to overcome it and get stronger and be better. Because I promise you, it does get better. There are better days ahead, and there always will be better days ahead.